working a full-time job, during the week, getting out and hunting after work, leaving after 5, it's difficult if you had to walk. One of the nights I got out of work after 5. I actually picked up my girlfriend at 5:30. It's getting dark at like 7:30 at this time. So you only have a couple hours to work with. So I pick her up, we drive up to this area, unload the bikes, and basically go 2 miles in on the bikes. If I wouldn't have had that bike, I would have never been able to get to those elk in time.
Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast, episode number 267, the electric hunting mountain bike, QuietKat with Adam Parr, Hunt Tech Part 7. Support for the Big Buck Registry and the Deer Hunt Podcast comes from Rackology, everything you need in one bag. Now available at Rural King and Orslyn Farm and Home storefronts, or online at www.rackology.org. Hunters Blend Coffee, defending hunting one cup at a time. Finally, there's a coffee that helps rather than hurts your freedom to hunt. Use the code BBR to receive 10% off your next Hunter's Blend order. Polarworks Coolers and the Chill Zone, specializing in the most durable, reliable thermal cups and coolers. Keep your drinks hot or cold in any element. Covert Scouting Cameras, remote cameras for hunting, wildlife, and security. Morse's Sporting Goods, a full line of sporting goods without the sales tax. And Big Buck merch. You can get cool, high-quality Big Buck t-shirts, long-sleeve t-shirts, and hoodies. And show support for this podcast by visiting www.bigbuckregistry.com/MERCH. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
This is Aaron Stonehawker with Tacticam. You're listening to my favorite podcast, the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast.
This is Ralph Sansrule from Archer's Choice.
And this is Vicki Sansrule from Archer's Choice and the Choice Television Show.
Hey, you're listening to the Big Buck Registry, and so do we.
Hey, this is Zach Sandow at Onyx Hunt, and you're listening to one of my personal favorite podcasts, the Big Buck Registry.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow predators. My name is Jay, and thank you for tuning in to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. For Dusty Phillips and Jim Keller and the entire staff here at the Big Buck Registry, welcome to this week's show. There are a couple things I'd like you to do for us if you could. If you would, please check us out on iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review. With your help, we're going to try and push this show up the iTunes charts. I know we have a lot of listeners out there, and I need you to take some action. I need you to leave a review and subscribe to the show. If you do subscribe, that'll give you access and notification each and every week that a new show is released. You can also access this show in its entirety on YouTube, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, "Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry." It's all right there for you to access on demand at your fingertips. Regarding the harness program, we have an ample supply of harnesses to give away from our volunteer donors. If you're in need of a full-body harness, please send an email to jay@bigbuckregistry.com. It's hard to imagine that a bicycle would have anything to do with deer hunting. For years, we've relied on vehicles, our trucks, our ATVs, our UTVs, to get us deeper into the woods to our hunting spots. But a bicycle? Well, it turns out, with a little ingenuity from some outdoor enthusiasts and a redesign of a legendary mountain bike, fatter tires, better suspension, a motor, and a hardcore battery like you'd find in the futuristic Tesla automobile, the all-terrain electric bike was born. We discuss in detail with QuietKat's Adam Parr how they engineered what is perhaps the most innovative electric all-terrain bicycle on the market, and how it will likely change the future of how hunters go quietly to and from their favorite hunting spots with the efficiency of an ATV. And as a result of our conversations with QuietKat, they have generously offered all of the listeners of the Big Buck Registry to receive a 15% discount on their order by using the discount code BIGBUCK15. That's BIGBUCK15 to receive 15% off your QuietKat order. We'll get to our entire interview with Adam Parr from QuietKat in just one moment. But before we do, let's hear from our friends at Rackology, Polarworks Coolers, and Jim Keller with the Deer News.
I still can't believe that's all you're taking.
I got everything I need all in one bag.
Rackology Deer Supplement and Attractant, developed through years of intense scientific research, comes a product that puts it all in one bag. Superior attractant, scientifically formulated vitamins and minerals, and all at a much better price. To get yours today, please check out rackology.org for a list of dealers. Rackology, how can you afford not to use it? Everything deer need, all in one bag.
I always wanted one of those high-end coolers because of the quality that I had heard of, but I couldn't justify the price. Then I found Polar Works. Finally, I found a company that understands quality and affordability. The Polar Works lineup is extensive and is filled with Polar cups, Polar tubs, and Polar soft coolers. So check out polarworks.com when you're considering your next high-quality cooler without breaking the bank. That's www.polarwerkz.com.
For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Our first story this week, MDC finds first case of CWD in southwest Missouri. This story is from the mdc.mo.gov website. The Missouri Department of Conservation reports that a young buck harvested in Stone County in early November has tested positive for the deadly deer disease, chronic wasting disease. According to MDC, this is the first detection of CWD in Stone County and the first detection in the far southwest region of the state. The yearling white-tailed buck was harvested on private land the opening weekend of the November firearms deer season near Reed's Spring, approximately 15 miles from the Arkansas border. MDC staff have notified the hunter and landowner of the CWD confirmation. More than 400 cases of CWD have been found in deer and elk in northwest Arkansas since early 2016. The positive test result is from one of more than 20,000 tissue samples collected by MDC from hunter-harvested deer during its mandatory CWD sampling efforts in 31 counties the opening weekend of the fall firearms season, November 10th and 11th. MDC reports that testing of the samples continues with more than 60% of the sample test results already reported to hunters. MDC also reports 10 other deer have been tested positive for CWD this season, with 1 from Adair County, 4 from Franklin County, 1 from Jefferson County, 3 from Macon County, and 1 from Oregon County. The 11 new positives for the season bring the total cases of CWD in Missouri to 86. MDC continues to offer voluntary CWD sampling and testing of harvested deer statewide through the remainder of the deer hunting season as MDC regional offices and at participating taxidermists and meat processors. An acid found in soil may make a disease-killing deer less infectious. This story is from the sciencenews.org website and was reported by Jennifer Lehman. An acid found in rich humus soil breaks down the misfolded brain proteins called prions that cause chronic wasting disease. When concentrations of humic acid similar to those found in soils were applied to diseased elk brain tissue, chemical signatures of the infectious prions were nearly erased, researchers report online November 29th in the PLOS Pathogens. That suggests that the acid somehow degrades the warped protein, making it less infectious, said Judd Aiken, a prion disease researcher at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. Chronic wasting disease, an incurable neurodegenerative disease, has devastated populations of deer, elk, and moose across parts of North America, South Korea, Sweden, and Norway. We know that environmental sources of infectivity play a role in transmission of the diseases, Aiken said. The twisted protein lurks in the rotting carcasses, feces, or saliva of infected animals and eventually seeps into the soil. The infection spreads when deer graze in prion-contaminated areas. The results suggest that humic acid could be used in efforts to limit the disease's spread, possibly as a soil decontaminant to disinfect farmland. Previously, high levels of a mineral called bernicite were also found to degrade prions, therefore limiting transmission. Alternatively, science could use this information to map which geographic areas elevate or inhibit prion transmission based on levels of humic acid in the soil, says Shannon Bartelt Hunt, an environmental engineer at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, who is not involved in the research. The next step, Bartelt Hunt says, might be to test the effects of humic acid on prion-contaminated soil samples to see if prions can be eradicated in the environment. Parker Bowes going out of business. This story is from the bowhunting.com website. Parker Bowes announced Monday that the company has made the difficult decision to shut down their operations. The company has explored what they believe to be all possible options to continue operations in one form or another, but to no avail. It has truly been an honor to have been a part of your hunting seasons for over 2 decades, the company website said, and it is hard to put into words what your loyalty and support has meant to us. Effective as of December 17th, 2018, all Parker and Red Hot branded products sold will be without a warranty regardless of statements on the packaging or owner's manuals. The company will make every effort to honor existing warranty claims for items received in their Staunton, Virginia headquarters on or before December 31st, 2018. Before returning any items for warranty service, please call 540-337-5426 to speak with a customer service representative and obtain a return authorization number. Items received after December 31st, 2018 will be refused. Be sure to check out the Parker website, social media pages, future emails, and with your local dealer for special offers and announcements. Illinois hunter bags 51-point buck, possibly one of the largest bucks ever shot in America. This story is from the Fox News website and was reported by Madeline Farber. An Illinois hunter's 51-point kill may be one of the largest bucks ever shot in America, the State Department of Natural Resources announced this week. Keith Zabluski of Johnston City shot and killed the deer in November during the first weekend of the shotgun season in the state, WSIL Channel 3 reported. State conservation officials have since told the man that the buck, which weighed roughly 265 pounds, could have as many as 51 scoreable points. That's 4 more points than a world record-breaking 47-point buck, which was shot in 2016 by a hunter in Tennessee. Zabluski reported plans to take the buck's antlers to the Illinois Deer and Turkey Expo in July. There, a panel of judges will again score the animal and officially determine if it broke the record. I pray before I go hunting, the hunter told the RFD radio network, and on that day, I did pray to God to bring me a buck, and he sure answered my prayers. That concludes the Big Buck Registry Deer News for 2018. Special thanks to Daniel Applebaum, Tim Donzie, and Ken DeRozier for leads on this week's stories. For links to the stories featured this week, please check our show notes at www.bigbuckregistry.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or have any questions about any of these topics, please email me at jim@bigbuckregistry.com. For the Big Buck Registry, this is Jim Keller with the Deer News. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thanks to Jim Keller for the Deer News. Without further ado, here is Adam Parr from QuietKat. Adam Parr, welcome to the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thanks for having me on.
We're psyched. We're psyched to have you because as we're exploring the technology that has advanced some of our abilities as hunters through our tech series, I thought the QuietKat, the all-terrain electric bike, would be an interesting spin on in addition to all the things we've been talking about. And, you know, we've explored mapping and GPS stuff and, you know, just a lot of the new technology that the hunter has more or less adopted in the last 5 to 6 years. And each show I go to, I see these electric bikes, and I wanted to explore a lot of how they became what they are today and how the hunter can use them in their arsenal of equipment that could make them better hunters, and why this all-terrain electric bike might be the future.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you nailed it. As hunters, we're constantly looking for the next mousetrap or ways that we can become more effective and more successful in the field. And technology is certainly one of those ways, from cell cameras to mapping to GPS to sites, all that stuff. And electric bikes kind of fit right into that realm. Yeah,
it is an interesting perspective, and I think it expands upon our travel abilities, kind of like the four-wheeler was for years. I feel like this is kind of replacing that in some ways. But we'll talk about all that stuff in a minute. Tell me about yourself, Adam. How are you connected to the all-terrain business, the all-terrain electric bike business, QuietKat, and tell us a little bit about your podcast, because I understand you're a podcaster as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I originally grew up in Michigan and been an avid hunter my whole life. Whitetail hunting, deer hunting, turkeys, all that stuff, and then moved out to Colorado in 2015. So I accepted a job offer with QuietKat. This was before we even had the bikes, and we can talk about a little bit of the history of the company a little later, but started working for QuietKat. I am currently the VP of sales for the company.
Yep.
And, it's a lot of my day-to-day obviously deals with the selling of the bikes. I work with a lot of our larger retailers, Cabela's, Bass Pro, Midway, Optics Planet, Sportsman's Guide, and then a number of our smaller dealers and archery shops around the country as well. I I do some with the marketing and trade shows, but mainly my focus is sales day to day. And it's been a great ride in the hunting industry itself, and being able to kind of work in an industry that you're passionate about and is also a hobby. So that's been really cool. And when I moved out to Colorado, I started a blog called transitionwild.com, and it really started out as a way for me to kind of showcase my hunts and essentially be a little bit of a journal, right? And I'd kind of document what I'm doing and scouting and hunting, and then it kind of developed to more strategy and tactics in regards to Western big game, more along the lines of elk, mainly elk focused, but some mule deer as well. And it's just been a lot of fun. And I got into the podcast world about a year ago, and that's been really cool as well. And as you know, it's a different medium of content and consuming information. So it's been a wild ride, been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it.
Very cool, man. Well, welcome to the podcast world.
Thank you.
I love hearing that there are new outdoor podcasters out there, and I think your job is quite interesting because of the aspects that you're exploring new ground. This is from what I can see, uncharted territory. I've seen guys and gals ride their bicycle to the stand, and this is bigger because it was just an off-road bicycle, right? And they're not riding their regular old street bike. They're going to ride their regular off-road terrain bike, but you got to pedal that. And then you got the advancements of the fat tire. The fat tire lets you go further places, right on sand and beaches and things like that. And now you've stepped it up another notch by adding an electric component to it where it can self-power through electricity, which A, makes it quiet, B, means you don't have to exhaust yourself as much as you would trying to pedal that thing wherever you need to go, and you can carry gear in. So I want to get into all that stuff.
Yeah, certainly. There's a number of advantages to an electric bike. Like you said, it's still the same footprint, relatively the same size as a normal bike, but you get all the advantages of, with the motor and the battery not having to work as hard. You're still quiet. You're scent free, especially for whitetail hunters. That's important. It's portable. You get many miles per charge, and it's a really good option. I mean, for the price points we're talking, and I'm sure we'll get into that, here later in the podcast. But some of our bikes you can get into for as low as $2,500, and right. That's huge. I mean, a lot of guys are going out and buying $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on a side-by-side or an ATV. This definitely is a great access vehicle. It can be used very similar to a four-wheeler, but you're not paying that price point, which is huge.
Right. All right. I want to break this all down and ask questions as though I think probably listeners are asking as they're listening to this. But let's start with like the company itself and the electric all-terrain bike industry. I mean, this is a little offshoot, it's a niche. Where does this thing begin? When do we decide to add electricity to the all-terrain bicycle, and where does the QuietKat company come into play?
Yeah, for sure. So the company itself was started in 2013, and it was started by Jake and Justin Roach, the twin brothers, who started actually a marketing company in the early 2000s called Urge Media.
Okay.
So we work with that company works with a number of brands in the hunting space, anywhere from your bow to tree stands to game calls, and works with a number of kind of TV shows and media centric in the hunting and fishing space. And so that company was founded in the early 2000s and allowed them to kind of found this company as well. They also own and operate Performance Outdoors in West Central Illinois. It's a whitetail hunting outfit. And so they're constantly using, that's a huge thing for them is getting clients to their stands and accessing these properties. They were using golf carts at the time. The bad boy buggies were pretty big.
Yep, right.
Starting probably mid 2000s up until maybe a couple years ago, they were all the rage. But so they were using those, and just they're not portable, and they're not easy to maintain. They're big, they're bulky, and so they kind of came up with this concept of like, hey, we feel like there's a need for something that's quiet, similar to a bad boy buggy, but yet portable and can be used in all types of terrain. So that kind of got their wheels spinning.
Yep. They
wanted to develop a product, and we initially launched with what's known as kind of our all-terrain trike. This was before we even had any of the two-wheel bikes. So we launched, in which we still sell today. It's a 60-volt lithium battery-powered all-terrain trike that is similar in nature to like a portable golf cart. It weighs 120 pounds. It folds up. You can haul it in the back of a truck. You can put it in the back of an SUV and access your stands that way. So that was the original kind of concept, and it's kind of evolved from there over the years.
It's interesting you say the trike, because if you look back, and I don't know how old you are, Adam, but if you look back at the evolution of the ATV, it all started with a three-wheel tricycle four-wheeler. That's what you had back in the late 70s, early, and most of the 80s, until they added that fourth wheel, which made it more stable. This is interesting that the evolution of your bikes were kind of starting out in the same way when you started with the trike. Very interesting.
Yeah, and the trike was more of along the lines for shedding weight and keeping it more portable, and also keeping costs down as low as possible. So that was kind of the concept. And with it being so light and so agile, and the suspension system that it has, the three-wheel actually is very stable in that manner.
Gotcha. All right. So where do we go from the trike? From there you go to the two-wheel version. How's that evolution happen? What's the research and development that's going on? And how do you decide that, we should put this on two wheels instead of three?
Well, like I said, we still sell the three-wheel trike today. It's just more of it's more of the consumer that maybe has a handicap or can't balance or can't ride can't get on and off a normal bike as well. So we still have that option. But yeah, the need really came. Let's see, we launched that bike. We started developing that late 2015 and launched it in 2016. And we've seen, just in general, whether it's obviously in the hunting, electric bikes have really started to kind of take shape and really take hold in this industry. But electric bikes have been around for a number of years. 20 plus years, people have been riding electric bikes. It's just been as of recently, in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years, that the wave has really started to kind of gain momentum here, especially in the U.S.
Okay.
I mean, in Europe, they've been using bikes for, like I said, years and years and years. It's a huge part of their transportation. But here in the U.S., that demand and that trend really started to pick up. So that's where we're like, aha, the trike is a great option, but the price points of $5,000 to $7,000 were a little steep for people.
Yep.
And a bike can be used for many things, not just hunting, but a lot of our riders are using these things to ride trails, or I use mine to go back and forth to go grab a sandwich at lunch. I mean, there's a lot of different applications for the bike market and electric bikes, and it just fit really well with our consumer base and what we were doing. So that's when we launched in 2016.
Gotcha. So 2016. And that's when I started to see these electric bikes pop up. And QuietKat was a prominent name that I was seeing overall. And where do you think this hunger for the electric bike comes from? Because, I mean, it's one thing to have an idea to make an electric bike, but darn, you better have a place to sell it. So you have to have a group of individuals that feel the need, and they're not just used for hunting. Obviously, I've seen them in cities, and seen baseball players driving them around, like at Fenway Park, for example. Where do you think this hunger and desire comes from for the electric bike?
Well, I think, in today's society, we're all strapped for time, right? We're busier than ever before. We try to make our lives more efficient through the use of technology, through our phones, through cell cameras. We don't no longer have to go out and pull cards if we don't want to. Rangefinder sites, we don't have to use our rangefinder anymore if we don't want to. All this technology helps us become more efficient in what we do, and I think the electric bike really plays into that. So, if you got a hour or two to be able to slip out to the property and go check trail cameras, or, hey, you got a 30-minute walk to your stand, this bike will cut it down to 5 to 10 minutes to getting into that stand, and you're not sweating, you're not working as hard. So I think it really boils down to efficiency and the demand of trying to do more with less time, because we're all super busy, and that bike really plays into that. And like I said, there's a number of advantages to an electric bike for a number of reasons, but I think it's just really that time and efficiency and embracing the technology is where we're really riding that wave.
Gotcha. So there's a need, right? There's an identifiable need that people want, and a want. Like, people want this convenience. They want to be able to get to a spot faster without burning up a lot of their own electricity, so to speak.
Yep.
So each bike that you have has different features, bells, whistles, components, benefits. Can we start at perhaps the entry-level bike, and maybe there's a generality we can draw from all the bikes. But what do all the bikes do? What do they all have in common, and as far as parts, batteries, abilities?
Yeah, for sure. And there's we originally started with essentially two different models, a 750 watt option and a 1,000 watt option. Now that's grown to, gosh, I don't even know how many we have now. We're probably pushing 12 different model options for coming in 2019. So we've really widened that base, because there are so many different uses. There's people with certain budgets that we got to, keep in mind. And, some people hunt in the mountains where you need more power and more, torque for climbing those hills. Whereas some people hunt in flatland Kansas or Florida, they don't need all the crazy power. So there's a number of different options that we've really developed, over the past couple of years. But starting out, I mean, our price point models, our kind of entry level, would be called our Rover and our Ranger. And the big difference with these bikes that you'll see compared to all of our other models is that they utilize a rear hub drive motor.
Okay.
And whereas like our $3,500 price point models, they utilize a mid-drive motor. And there's a big difference between those two motor options. And the big difference is the torque and the power that you get out of a mid-drive compared to a hub drive motor.
Okay.
So in kind of a common theme with all the bikes, there's a motor, there's a battery, and then you've got your display that in your keypad to control your power and see your mileage and your speed and all that. And then each bike is kind of broken down from there on what components are on the bike. Some have suspensions, some have a hydraulic coil shock, whereas some have more of they have an air shock, so it's a better performing system. Some have hydraulic disc brakes, some have mechanical disc brakes. Some have different gearing options. So if you're going up in the mountains, you want it geared lower for more torque. If you're kind of in flatter terrain, you don't need all the torque, then we have different gearing sets for that as well. So there's a number of different options, but the Rover and the Ranger are kind of our entry-level price point bikes, around $2,500 bike, $2,500, and they utilize those hub drive bikes. So if you're hunting in the mountains and going up a lot of steep hills and terrain, I would want to see you in more of the mid-drive bikes, the next tier up, so that you have what you need to get to your stand or access the property.
Okay, so the Rover and the Ranger, that's kind of your entry level, running between low twos, mid twos, $2,000 entry level. Mm-hmm. These bikes are built for more or less the flatter terrain, and because you don't need as much torque to get up the mountains.
Yeah, that's right. And you can certainly use the hub drive bikes in the mountains. Like I elk hunted off of a Ranger 750, which is the one of the hub drive bikes, and you can definitely do it. It's just you have to sometimes pedal more or work a little bit harder than you would have to with the mid drive bikes, like such as the Ambush 750. So that's the big difference. These bikes will work anywhere in the country for most terrain. It's just with anything, I mean, there's you have to sacrifice a little bit if you jump down into some of those lower price point models.
Okay.
But for the guy in Florida or Kansas or Flatland, he doesn't need all the power. So that's why spend the extra money. So there's a lot of different options to weigh and a lot of considerations to factor in.
Okay. All right. Let's start breaking that down a little bit more. So this is just in general, because I've never ridden one of these things. I think I played on one of your QuietKats in the front lobby there at the ATA show last year, just kind of sat on it. But
yeah,
how does it work? So you have an electrical component, but it's still a bicycle. So how does that all kind of play in, and the braking system and all that? Is it computerized, or is it mechanical, or is it a combination of both? Can you pedal? How does the electricity work in for the motor?
Yeah, so great questions. You have an option with our bikes. So we do have a thumb throttle. So if you don't even want to pedal, you can just hit the throttle and you'll go. You don't have to start pedaling and then hit the throttle.
Like a
You can just
four-wheeler
start
kind of thing.
Yeah, you can start from a dead stop. But our bikes are also built in as a pedal assist. So anytime you start pedaling, anytime those pedals are moving, the motor engages. So it's assisting you, makes it easier. And just like a normal bike, you have your gearing system, your thumb triggers to downshift or upshift. So like if I'm going up a steep hill, I'm going to downshift to gear 1, which is the largest sprocket in the rear wheel, and that's going to give you the most torque to climb. If I'm trying to buzz down a dirt road or a 2-track at 20 miles an hour, then I'm gonna upshift to gear 7, 8, or 9, and that's going to give you the most speed for what you're doing. So It's geared just like a normal bike, but in regards to the motor and the battery, you have a keypad on the left handlebar, and you can control your power settings. So whenever you turn the bike on, it defaults to power level 1, and that's going to be your least amount of power, least amount of speed. And then you can hit the plus sign, and you can go all the way up to power 5. That's going to give you your most power, most speed. It's also going to use your most battery. So if you're trying to conserve and trying to go for the long game and get 20, 25, sometimes 30 miles per charge, you got to be aware and be conscious of your power settings. So I'm constantly kind of switching between power settings based on if I'm climbing a hill or if I'm going on flat or if I'm trying to go slow versus fast. So I'm always adjusting, and it's very intuitive, So I'll be pedaling sometimes if I want to conserve the battery, and other times if I'm just doing a whitetail hunt where I'm going a half a mile or a mile, and I know I can charge that battery, I'm not really worried about mileage, then I'll just hit the throttle all the way there. So pedal assist and throttle only, and then you adjust your power settings based on how hard or how little you want to work.
Gotcha. All right. So you got the power on the right, just like a four-wheeler. You got you've got the throttle on the right.
Well, our throttle's on the left because on traditional mountain bikes, your shifter is on the right side. So that's a little bit different for people to get used to, but honestly, after using it for a couple times, you don't even notice the difference.
Okay. All right. So you've got so let me just visualize this again. You've got the throttle.
Yeah, your keypad on the left, which controls your on-off, your power settings, and then your throttle right next to that. Yep.
Okay, so everything is controlled on the left, and then the shifter's on the right-hand side. Okay.
Yep. And then right in the center, you have your display screen right in the center of the handlebars, and that shows you which power setting you're on, how much battery life you have left, what your speed is. You can track your mileage, see how far you're gone. So there's all that stuff there too. And then just like your normal bike as well, you have your brake levers.
Okay.
Front brake is on the left, rear brake is on the right.
Okay. And then you can just pedal with it. Is that correct? If you're not getting enough power from a certain settings and you can drive more power with your legs, you can just assist it or
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you were to run your battery dead or you wanted to ride it with it completely off, you can certainly do that. You can hit the power setting all the way down to 0 and you're riding it just like a normal bike.
Okay.
So there definitely is that option as well.
Interesting. And does the pedal charge the battery as well, or is that like futuristic kind of stuff?
Ours currently do not.
Okay.
And that technology is out there. There's regenerative power through braking and pedaling, but currently we don't offer that. It's kind of a newer I mean, it's been around for a while, but it hasn't been developed enough to make it really worthwhile. On average, the regen stuff, you're getting, roughly 10% back out of your charge. You're talking 1 to 2 miles, which can make a difference. But for the added weight, the price, and you're constantly kind of putting that battery on and off a charge, which lithium-ion batteries don't build a memory, and they don't. There's no maintenance, and you can't really damage them in that way. But it's not good for a battery to be kind of like charging and then not charging and then charging and then not charging. So we haven't integrated that, and I don't think it's going to be anything in the near future, but it's definitely a possibility down the road.
Okay. So the battery itself, talk about the battery. How big is it? How much does it weigh? How much does the bike weigh itself?
Yeah, so our bikes, depending on the model, we have some bikes that are roughly about 50 pounds, and then we have kind of our more workhorse bikes that are 75 roughly. Okay. Depending on what accessories you add, it can add a little bit of weight there, but not exactly the lightest bike or a light bike. All e-bikes are heavy to a certain nature, or heavier than normal bikes, because you do have the battery, you do have the motor, all that stuff. But yeah, they're still extremely portable. But in regards to the battery itself, we have a number of different options. And if you check out our website, we essentially have roughly three different frame options for this year. And with that, we have 2 different batteries itself as far as the design and how they integrate with the bike. Okay. But our starting kind of entry level or stock battery per se on all of our bikes is a 11.6 amp hour, 48 volt lithium ion battery. And roughly you can get about 20 miles per charge off that battery. And that's under kind of a standard test condition of a 200-pound rider, flatter terrain, medium power setting, so like a 2-3 power, but that's only using the throttle, so no pedaling. Okay. So on average, what we say, if it's under kind of ideal conditions, you can get up to 20 miles per charge. Now that I've had customers call me and say I've gotten 35 miles per charge because they were pedaling a lot and being conscious of that and, assisting it. And so there's definitely that. Now, in some of the bikes, we offer a 14 amp hour battery, a 17 amp hour battery, and a 21 amp hour battery. And, so for the Western hunters who are going, 10 plus miles in one way maybe, or are looking to use this in a remote camp where they're not going to be able to charge as often, or potentially not the entire week, then they're going to want to go with that larger battery because it's going to give them, a lot more range. Okay. In that regard. And, a big thing with us, everything we do is lithium ion. But what a lot of people don't realize is that we only use Panasonic lithium-ion battery cells. Okay. There's a lot of e-bike manufacturers out there using lithium-ion batteries, but where they're cutting costs or where they're able to offer a lower price point is really, one, the motor, and a lot of people don't realize it, but 2, the battery cells. They're using either Samsung or an LG, which are both brand names, or another off-brand battery cell, but they just don't have the dependability. We've tested them. We found issues with just their performance. They don't get the mileage that they say they're going to. So we only use Panasonic cells, and they're the leader in lithium-ion batteries. Tesla cars, they exclusively, they only use Panasonic because, they are top tier, top quality. They're the best performance. They cost a little bit more, but you're definitely better off going with paying the premium price and getting a product that actually works, because a lot of people get there's so many different options to look at and so many different not only with our bikes but a lot of our competitors or other brands out there, they try to sneak these different things in and that's a big one that I try to make people aware of. Go with Panasonic. That's the only way to go.
So the Panasonic lithium-ion batteries are the ones that you're using, and it may increase the cost some, but you're saying these are the best batteries on the planet, including these are the same kind of batteries that are being used in the Tesla car.
Oh yeah. And like I said, we've tested a number of other brands and cells out there inside of our batteries, and that's why we only use Panasonic.
Okay. So are the batteries themselves different sizes, and are they universal for each bike, or does each bike have its own separate battery that you have to buy?
So each bike comes with one battery, and then you can buy an additional battery if you want to, swap them in and out, if you want it for convenience, or bring the battery with you if you're worried about, mileage or needing that extra capacity. But yeah, there's really two different battery options that we offer, and it depends on the frame option of the bike. But essentially they're the same battery. They're just a different shape in the way they fit the battery fit the bike based on the frame design. So
okay.
I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it does. And really, I'm just trying to find out, can you buy one? Does your battery fit all the bikes? I guess is the question. Was it designed that way? So if you buy, maybe, I don't know, maybe I have a battery that I bought because I bought a Ranger, and then I decided to sell the Ranger and buy a better bike, but I had a spare battery. Can I then use that spare battery in the Canyon, for example?
Yeah, Ranger to the Canyon, no, but Ranger to the Warrior or the Ambush or the Apex or the Predator, that battery is compatible.
Okay.
So for this 2019 year, we're offering this different frame option. So our current frame, like what you see with the Ranger, the Rover, the Ambush, the Warrior, the Apex, and the Predator, it's kind of this sleek. Everyone really likes it. It's a really cool, kind of authoritative, badass looking frame. So those batteries are all compatible to each other, but we've come out with what's called like the Zion and the Canyon for 2019, and then we're releasing the Sequoia and the Denali here early in the year. And those are essentially a different frame design where the top tube doesn't come up as high, kind of right off the handlebars or the stem there. It comes down and it's got a lower standover height. So we weren't able to use the same battery with that design of the frame. So we had to go to a side pull battery. So therefore we had to change the shape of the battery.
Gotcha. All right.
Now the chargers are all integrated and compatible between all of our models, but you got to make sure, certain bikes do not accept the same battery anymore. And we went to the different frame option because to widen our audience base, to have that lower standover height makes it more adaptable or more user friendly to women, kids, shorter riders, and it fits them a lot better. So there's that as well.
Gotcha. All right. So not each battery goes with each bike. Some bikes have their own separate component, usually based off of the frame in which you're buying it.
Exactly.
But all the charging components that would charge these batteries are universal for each of your batteries.
Yep.
All
yep.
Right.
Exactly.
And then the batteries themselves have different capabilities as far as amperage. So you've got some that you may need a more heavy duty battery for that particular bike, depending upon your usage and what your maybe your weight, what terrain you're covering, what you're towing with it. Maybe you got a cart you got to bring up or some heavier equipment.
Yeah, exactly. That the amp hour doesn't affect how much power the battery is delivering. They're all a 48 volt lithium ion battery. But yeah, if you go, basically the larger the amp hour on the battery is, the more mileage that you're going to get out of that battery. So that's where that comes into play.
Okay. What about the tires? And it looks like you have different size tires as far as height for different bikes. And some of it looks like you've got a couple of, and they're not entry level, but they're some of these bikes, and you'll have to explain what like the Voyager, for example, is, or the Bandit. They seem to be smaller tired bikes, but it almost looks like they have a compact ability. I'm not sure. Maybe break down some of the varieties of bikes in the tire size and why we would look at different tire sizes.
Yeah, so when you talk about the Voyager and the Bandit models, those are actually a folding bike. So the frame itself actually hinges in half, and it's just more of a compact mode of transportation. You can literally fold that thing up and put it in the trunk of a car, which is pretty cool. And we're actually developing a carrying case for it that, you can put it in this big plastic case, and you can drag it through the airport if you want, or stow it under an RV or on a boat, for example. So that bike itself or those two models are a folding frame, and with that we went down to a smaller tire. So those are a 20-inch rim, and it's a 4-inch wide tire. So whereas like our Ranger, the Rover, the Ambush, the Zion, all those bikes utilize a 26-inch by 4.5-inch tire. So it's a little bit wider, and it's a larger wheelbase. So that's better for rolling over logs and rocks and stuff. Now the folding bike, still is designed for off-road terrain. I've hunted with that here in the mountains, and those things are a blast, and they do have a lot of power for how small they are. So it's a really cool option. And then you get into our full suspension bikes like the Ridge Runner that also use the same size rim, but they're a smaller tire. They're a 3-inch wide. It's a little bit more of a trail riding bike per se. But the whole concept of the fat tires is that it gives you more stability, gives you more traction. You can adjust the tire pressure itself from anywhere from 5 psi to 30. So if you're going in a lot of snow or loose gravel, you might be down in that 8 to 10 psi. If you're riding a lot of hard pack or dirt roads or hard surfaces, you might be in that 20 psi. Just all kind of depends. So we do have the different options depending on what you're doing and what type of terrain you're riding and what your needs are. If you need portability, you can go with the folding bike. If you're not trying to fold it up and store it somewhere, then our kind of larger frame bikes are the ticket.
Gotcha. All right. So you actually have some recommendations for air pressure or tire pressure based off of the terrain you're working. That makes sense. I mean, it certainly seems like if you want to stick a little bit more to the surface, you put less pressure in the tire. And I certainly understand that. So the name of the company is QuietKat. Quiet is the preface there. How quiet is quiet on these bikes? I mean, what do you test decibel levels? And I mean, I have to assume that the electric bike automatically is much quieter than a gasoline engine that you'd find in a four-wheeler.
Oh yeah. And we get that question all the time, and what we convey to people is we're not silent cat. There's absolutely
right. Good point.
You don't get to a point where you're not hearing anything, but you really when you're riding these bikes, the only thing that you're hearing are the tires rolling over the ground. I mean, it's that quiet. Obviously, with any bike, you got your chain and your shifting gears. There's a little bit of noise from that, but honestly, I mean, you don't hear any like hum or any noise coming from the motor or the electrical system. It's really just as loud as a normal bike. Can be a little bit louder because the tires are wider than your normal bike, but like I said, you don't. When you're rolling over the terrain, you only hear what. Obviously, if you're going through like crunchy leaves or something, that's going to make a lot of noise. But you'd make noise walking or riding a normal bike. But yeah, there's really no noise at all. It's just as silent or just as quiet as a normal bike. And you can get in undetected wherever you're going. Okay.
I want to break down each bike here in just a sec, but what are some of the other unique features that you're excited about in some of these bikes?
The main thing is that, kind of what I touched on earlier, we have component sets that are, catered to wherever you're using it at. So for example, if somebody's in the mountains or is carrying a lot of weight and really looking to use this as a workhorse, we have the component options to offer them so they're not compromising. For example, the Apex bike has been one of our most popular models, and that has the hydraulic disc brakes, so it's got the best stopping power that you can have. It has the air suspension fork, so it's going to be an extremely smooth ride, and it's going to handle any type of downhill diverse terrain that you throw at it. And then it's got the wide gearing system, so it's geared more appropriately for climbing and torque and power. So I'm just excited that, for 2019, we have a really wide offering of component options. If you don't want to compromise and you want to pay a little bit more money, then we've got that offering. For the guys that are a little bit shorter, or women riders that are getting more into bikes and more into hunting, we have a frame option that's available to them and fits them really well. And then, we have, kind of our super high-end bikes like the Ridge Runner that has a full suspension, front and rear suspension, that you can really tackle a mountain. You can go downhill, basically like a normal downhill mountain bike and have that really fluid and mountain bike feel. So I'm just excited about all the different offerings that we have for coming into 2019, and we really have a bike for everybody.
Okay. How is the comfortability and drivability? Are these, do they ride like a regular off-road bike, like a big 10-speed that you take off-roading? I have an off-road bicycle and it's old, but do they handle differently because of the tires and just the technology and the framework? And I mean, how long can you ride comfortably as you go? And I understand you're riding on terrain, so you're going to be probably standing up and sitting down and bumping and weaving and all that stuff. But what's the ride like? Yeah,
they're very comfortable. When fat tires, so the whole concept of fat tire bikes really started with mountain bikers wanting to be able to ride during the winter, or spring and fall when they're getting that freeze thaw and the melt off. If you ride a normal 2.8-inch tire on a muddy trail or snow, you just can't do it. You cut through that, you slip all over the place, and you feel like you're going to crash. So the fat tire concept really came from riding in any terrain and any weather. And with that, when fat tire bikes first hit the market, I'm talking non-electric bikes here, they didn't even have a front suspension. The fat tires themselves, they absorb so much of the ground. They kind of act as your suspension, right there in and of itself. And like I mentioned earlier, you can adjust the tire pressure anywhere from 5 to 30 PSI. So if you want a little bit more of a bouncy, more comfortable ride that's going to absorb like all the rocks and all the terrain undulations, then you'll lower that tire pressure down. If you're riding more on a hard pack, you can increase the tire pressure, so you're going to get a little bit better mileage. So with that, you have suspension through the tires themselves, and then now we've had it all along, but there's only one model that we currently make that doesn't have a front suspension. It's a rigid front fork, and that's the Rover. It's our price point model, but all the other bikes do have a front suspension. So that makes it nice when you're rolling over a rock or a log, or coming off a little bit of going off a curb on a road, for example. It absorbs all of that shock. It makes it really nice. And then, like I mentioned too, we have our full suspension bikes now, which, I mean, you could take that off a 20-foot jump, and you're not gonna, you're gonna have everything absorbed through the suspension that way. So they are very comfortable, and you can stand up, you can sit down, and with not having to pedal if you don't want to, that can be tough sometimes. I mean, when you got all your gear on and you're bulked up with all your clothes, pedaling can be kind of a pain in the ass. So
right. No,
that makes
definitely.
it even more comfortable. Right. Your knee starts hurting or something, starts acting up, then you can just hit the throttle. So it's very, very comfortable. You can ride for long distances, ride all day. And, you're not feeling that burden of a normal bike.
Gotcha. All right. So I've gone to your website, QuietKat.com. It's quiet with a K for cat.
Yep.
And I've organized all the bikes from the lowest price point to the highest price point. I like to break down each bike, just quickly touch on what each one does and why each one jumps up in price. Let's start with the Rover. This is your entry level, and I think you said it's the one that doesn't have any suspension on it. But let's start with the Rover. What's that bike about?
Yeah, so Rover is currently a $2,200 price point, and like I said, it's kind of a stripped down, doesn't have all the bells and whistles as our normal bikes. The big factor, again, what makes that a $2,200 bike currently is that it has that rear hub motor. And those hub motors, like I mentioned earlier, don't have the same power and same torque as a mid-drive motor, where you get up into some of our more expensive models. So that's a big factor to consider when making your purchase. But other than that, why it comes in as our starting model, we've removed the front suspension. But again, like I just explained, there's a lot of suspension in the tires themselves. So it's a rigid front fork. And then the other big difference is that it has only a single speed gearing. So there's no shifter, there's no derailleur, there's no rear cassette. So that further removes some costs. So you don't have the wide range of gearing, that kind of what I explained earlier. If you're going up a steep hill, you can downshift. If you're going up a steep hill, going for speed, you can upshift. So you don't have that capability. But where you do gain with the single speed is, less moving parts. And this goes with anything. The less moving parts is less points of failure and less maintenance to deal with.
True.
You just kind of get on it and go. So it's a really solid bike for somebody who just wants to get on and not have to worry about anything. So that's what's really cool about it. Sometimes the simplicity can make it better in a lot of ways, depending on how you're using it. So it's still a great bike, but really it's got the hub motor, the rigid fork, and a single speed gearing.
Gotcha. Okay. So the next step up from that is the Ranger. You're jumping up a few $100s into the $2,500 price point.
Yep.
And it looks like you're adding a suspension. What else is different about that bike from the Rover?
Yeah, same frame, same battery, same motor. The real difference there is you get that front suspension, like you mentioned, and you also get a 7-speed gearing. So you do have the capabilities of using the bike as a normal, let's say, mountain bike, where you're going up that steep hill. You can downshift. If you're going for speed, you can upshift. So big difference there, front suspension and the gearing.
Okay. From the Ranger, we go to this bike called the Ambush. Now you're jumping up $1,000. You're going from the $2,500 price point to the $3,500 price point. What's that extra $1,000 getting me there?
Really what that boils down to is the motor itself. I keep going back to this, but the hub motors just don't have the same, the rear hub motors that are found in the Ranger and the Rover don't have the torque and the same power as a mid-drive. So that's where you get the big difference in price there. So a little further explanation on mid-drive motors. On the Ambush model and all of our other bikes where they have a mid-drive motor, that motor is located inside the frame, and it's integrated and sits right down with the crank and the pedals, where the pedals go onto the crank and the crank goes inside to the motor that goes inside the frame. That's where that motor sits. So they're more money because there's that added technology of being integrated with the crank, but really you're paying that price point because it just gives it more power and more torque, and that's the biggest difference for that model. Now you do jump up in componentry a little bit on the gearing side. You go to an 8-speed versus a 7-speed, but other than that, the brakes are the same, frame's the same, the battery's the same. You get the one step up in gearing, so an extra gear there. But the big difference again is that motor.
Okay, let's take a little coffee break. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation about the electric hunting mountain bike with QuietKat's Adam Parr.
I still can't believe that's all you're taking.
I got everything I need all in one bag.
Rackology Deer Supplement and Attractant, developed through years of intense scientific research, comes a product that puts it all in one bag. Superior attractant, scientifically formulated vitamins and minerals, and all at a much better price. To get yours today, please check out rackology.org for a list of dealers. Rackology, how can you afford not to use it? Everything deer need, all in one bag.
Hunter-friendly coffee retailers are great, but ever wonder where they buy it from? Now there's a company that imports directly from farmers, zero middlemen, roasts it, and ships it right to your door. From the farmer's fields to your morning cup, Hunter's Blend Coffee has been in the hands of hunters. Through their giving, your coffee supports the RMEF, Whitetails Unlimited, and Women's Hunting Associations, and many others. Now you can defend hunting one cup at a time. Not bad for a cup of coffee. And did I mention, it is so good. And now back to our conversation with Adam Parr from QuietKat. From the ambush, we go to the Zion. Same price point, but a different design from what I can see. It looks like the bar is different. So ambush to the Zion. What's the Zion all about?
Yeah, they are literally the exact same bike, except for, like you mentioned, the frame. And I touched on that a little bit earlier. For 2019, we've come out with this new frame design that sits down lower. And so if you're a rider who's 5'3" to 5'10", the Zion is going to be the better fit for you size-wise as compared to the ambush that, we say between like 5'8" and 6'4". So it's just a step down in the frame design. So it's accommodates riders that are shorter or can't get on and off the bike as easy. But literally the same exact bike, same components, same motor, same battery. It's just a different frame design.
Okay, so same bike, different frame.
Yep.
From the Zion, we go to the Warrior. You're jumping up $200 to about $3,800. What's that one about?
So the Warrior and the Ambush are the same bike, except for the motor size. You go from a 750 to a 1,000-watt motor. And that 1,000-watt motor definitely gives you some added power going, especially when you're going up those hills. For the guys that are heavier or they're looking to haul a deer out or carry more gear, carry stands, whatever. That 1,000-watt definitely kicks up the power a bit. So that's where you get the added price level there. You jump up in price.
Okay.
But the components are same, so you still have the 8-speed gearing, you still have the hydraulic coil shock, you still have the mechanical disc brakes. All of that stuff's the same. You're just going up to the next size, the 1,000-watt motor.
Okay, so bigger motor in the Warrior compared to the Ambush.
Yep.
From the Warrior, we jump up to the Canyon, same price point. Looks like it might be the same bike, just a different design, like frame design, like the Zion. What's the deal there?
That's exactly it. Yep, exactly it. The Warrior and the Canyon are the same bike, but much like the jump from the Ambush to the Zion, with the Canyon, you're going down to that shorter frame as well. So same bike, just going to that shorter standover height for, smaller riders on that side.
Okay. All right. From the Canyon, we're going to the Predator. Now we're jumping up in price of $100, going up to the $3,900 level. What's the Predator all about? It looks like it's got some camo on it and looks similar to some of the Warrior frame designs, but I'll let you to fill us in.
Yeah. So on all our bikes, we do offer two different frame color options. Currently, it's a black and a camo. For 2019, we are offering a charcoal option.
Okay.
So different frame colors there. The color doesn't change the price at all. So you can, if you want camo, it's the same price as the charcoal, for example. So that doesn't change or factor into the price cost. But where we go to the Predator, that's a 750-watt mid-drive motor. But where we get the added price point there is we're jumping up in components. So instead of mechanical disc brakes, you have the hydraulic disc brakes, just improved stopping power. So for the guys in the mountains that are going down steep hills or carrying more weight, the hydraulic brakes are just nicer to have. Again, they stop better.
Gotcha.
Then you go with the Predator. You also get the air suspension fork. So it definitely gives it a nicer ride. You have a little bit more adjustability there in the spring and the tensioning and the bounce with the suspension itself. So you get an upgrade there, and then you get an upgrade in the rear cassette. So you get an extra gear. You go to a 9-speed instead of an 8-speed.
Okay.
And then you get an upgraded derailleur as well. So the actual shifting component that jumps between the sprockets in the rear. It's it's a better quality. So it's a little bit smoother shifting. It's more durable in that regard. So really just an upgraded components, which includes, again, the brakes, the suspension, and the gearing system.
Gotcha. All right. From the Predator, the next price point up is the Bandit. You're going from the $3,900 level to about $4,100. But the Bandit this is where things change a little bit. This is your first foldable bike at the price point. So tell us about the Bandit.
Yeah, so the Bandit is a mid-drive 750 watt motor. But what makes this bike really unique is that it comes with the folding frame. So that's for some people that matters. I mean, we have some customers that are throwing these in their compact planes and, driving or flying into these remote areas such as Alaska or Canada or whatever, and they throw their bike out and go, which is pretty cool, So right. that's the frame itself folds, and in the steering column, the handlebars fold down, the pedals fold in, so it's a really, really compact, like I stated earlier, can fit in the trunk of a car or stow under an RV. But you get a good suspension system with that as well. Hydraulic disc brakes, so it's got great stopping power. And what's unique about this bike is that it utilizes a carbon belt drive instead of your normal metal chain. So the belt drive, like when you're folding, the biggest thing with that bike is that it eliminates the rear cassette and the derailleur, the shifter in the rear wheel. And the big reason why that's important, especially for a bike that folds, is that you're constantly kind of folding that thing up and laying it down on its side. If you had a normal derailleur, that could get bent, that could get broke, folding it up and putting it in these places. So this belt drive is pretty unique because it utilizes the internal, it's called the Gates belt drive and a Sturmey Archer hub. So the gearing, the bike still has 3 gears. So, if you're climbing or going for speed, you still have those options. But the gearing is inside the rear wheel. So there's no extra componentry that's hanging out that can get bent. And that carbon belt drive is pretty much maintenance free. You don't get any rust. The mud and the sand doesn't build up in there or anything. So it's kind of a unique drivetrain all in itself. So it's kind of a bike that is a little bit more standalone, all
Sure.
in its own category, along with the Voyager, which is also a folding bike. But kind of a different animal, but very cool and lots of power.
Gotcha. All right. The Apex.
Yeah, the Apex is a 1,000 watt drive system. Going back to the Predator 750.
Yep.
It's the same bike as the Predator. It's just you jump up again to that 1,000 watt motor. So it's same components, just you're getting more power.
Okay, so more power overall.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so from that we go to the Voyager, which is the next folding bike. What's the difference between the Voyager and the Bandit?
The big difference, and for 2019 we have a couple different drivetrain options as in regards to the motor itself, but the big difference is the component. You're getting an air shock with the Voyager. One of the Voyager models, we're offering a new torque sensor motor. So the torque sensors, they essentially, instead of the current mid-drive motors that we're using, whenever you start pedaling or hit the throttle, based on what power setting you're on, they just go. In other words, you could be pedaling down the road at like 20 miles an hour and be barely moving those pedals, and you're still going 20 miles an hour.
Right.
With these torque sensor motors, it matches the rider input. So if you're barely pedaling, it's just going to give you a little bit of power. Now, if you're really getting after it, trying to climb a steep hill or something, you're pedaling, it matches you, so it gives you more power. So that's a big difference for one of the Voyager models in that regard. A little bit different on the component side, but essentially the same bike.
Okay, so it sounds like you're getting more computerized in there, where it's giving you some sensory feedback on what's happening with the driver.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, and then so that the Voyager comes in around $4,400. Then we jump up to one of the standard bikes again, not the foldable bikes, and it looks like this is the last one in your line. It's around $5,500. You're talking about the Ridge Runner. What's it looks like this may be the pinnacle of the bikes that you're carrying at the moment. What's the Ridge Runner all about?
Yeah, so the Ridge Runner, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, is our full suspension bike. So it's got the front shock and the rear as well. So front and rear suspension makes it a really smooth ride. It's got that torque sensor motor, so it gives it that very natural mountain bike feel. It's got very high-end components, so rock shock front suspension. It's got really good hydraulic disc brakes, so it's kind of got all the bells and whistles, high-end components, a sleek design. 3-inch fat. They're kind of a hybrid tire between your normal, mountain bike tire, but they're not the 4.5-inch wide that you get with our normal bikes. So a little smaller footprint there, which makes it more maneuverable. You shed a lot of weight with that bike, so you're around 50 pounds, which is really nice. It's definitely a great bike, and we're certainly excited about it. It's really geared towards the person that's bombing down a lot of single tracks, a lot of diverse terrain. So it's a really, really cool bike, and it's still compatible with our trailer system and some of our other accessories. So that's pretty cool. And what you don't currently see on the website as well that we're coming out with for next year. Important to note, we're coming out with like the Zion and the Canyon models. We're coming out with those. But they're going to be called the Sequoia and the Denali.
Okay.
They're just that step up in componentry. So we're offering those smaller frame bikes with the upgraded hydraulic brakes, with the air suspension, with the 9-speed gearing and the upgraded derailleur. So we're offering those options as well, which you don't currently see on the website, but we'll be hitting for 2019.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about some of the other things that you would want to know as a buyer of some of these bikes. How do these things handle cold water and dirt?
Yeah, so all of our bikes are designed to take on water. We say don't go tip them over and submerge them in a lake. They're not designed to be used like a submarine, but you can certainly splash through puddles, go through creek crossings, rivers, get caught out in the rain. Everything is sealed, so you're not dealing with any moisture buildup, or you have to worry about anything getting inside the batteries. The batteries are all completely sealed. The motors are sealed, and the components and the display and the keypads, those are all built to be weatherproof. So yeah, they definitely handle. What we say is, when you're using them in mud and rocks and dirt and whatever, you want to try to keep things clean. So if you can, after you get done with a really muddy ride, spray that thing off, power wash it off. Don't be afraid to, get all the mud and the dirt off there. Keeping the dirt and the stuff out of the chain and the brakes is going to make your bike last a lot longer, as far as like not having to replace brake pads and your chain as often. There's some maintenance in that regard, but it's very, very minimal, just like a normal bike. So they're definitely designed to be used outdoors, in all elements. And, so there's that.
Gotcha. Okay. Speaking of cleaning your bike, what other maintenance should you employ on some of these things?
It's just important to, with any vehicle itself, four-wheelers, ATVs, normal bikes, electric bikes. It's just good to kind of keep a tab on all bolted connections, making sure everything's tight. Anytime you can kind of do an inspection and make sure everything's working the way it should, or your rear acts on there tight, it's going to eliminate noise, and it's going to make sure everything is safe, right? So we definitely recommend that. Just like with normal bikes and with any vehicle, your brake pads are going to wear out over time. Depending on how much you use them or what type of terrain you're in, they might last a year, they might last 5 years, they might last 6 months. Depending on what you're doing. So But typically, people are replacing brake pads every couple years. The chain itself, you want to keep oiled. So you can pick up a chain oil from your local bike shop or order it online. You want to keep that chain oiled so it's not wearing down your gears and your cassettes, and that chain is lasting a lot longer. You might have to adjust the brakes. You might have to do some stuff like that upon an initial break-in, but for the most part, it's very minimal. Again, keeping it clean. There's no maintenance to the battery themselves, which is a good one. The lithium-ion batteries, they don't build a memory, so you don't have to run them down the same amount every time. You don't have to charge them the same amount. The chargers automatically shut off when the battery's full. So there's a lot of advantages to having a bike. It's very simple, and if anything, if you crash, for example, or the bike falls over and you break a brake lever or whatever, all this stuff is components, and with the service side and the warranty side, there's a bike shop in every town or every decent sized town. So anytime you need any maintenance, you need your bike tuned up. If you do have an issue with something electrically, or it's a warranty issue, we send you to a bike shop. We take care of everything. We ship the parts there. They do all the service, and if it's a warranty item, we pay for the bill. So that's really cool. Is anywhere you're at, if you're hunting in California or Florida or Alaska or Michigan, you've got a service shop close, and parts are regularly available.
Okay. All right. Moving on, and you mentioned this just a little bit, storage and safety. What kind of safety issues should we be considering here? I'm assuming a lot of the things that you do with regular biking, helmets, pads, I don't know what's involved, but and then how do you store these bikes? How do they travel?
Yeah, for safety, yeah, you nailed it right there. Making sure you're wearing the protective gear, helmets, pads. The right clothing is key too. Especially with hunting, sometimes the clothes can get a little bit bulky, but you don't want any loose clothing. You don't want super bulky pants that could get wrapped around the pedals or caught in the chain. That's with any bike, not just a normal bike, or with any vehicle. You're riding on an ATV or whatever, you don't want loose clothing that can get caught in anything. So it's important to be aware of that. If you've got really bulky pants, I try to tuck them in my boot or put a rubber band around my leg to kind of hold them in a little bit better. So that's key there. Whenever you're starting out or riding one of these bikes for the first time, you want to keep the power setting low, because a lot of people don't understand. Electric vehicles in general, whether it's an electric bike or a four-wheeler or a Tesla car, these things are instant torque. They take off really quick. So, okay. For first-time riders, you want to be aware that, you're keeping the speeds low, you're keeping the power setting low, getting used to the ride and the feel of the bike. And then other than that, if you're doing any maintenance to the bike, again, these are pedal assist bikes. If you're loading it in and out of a vehicle or taking it in and out of off a bike rack, make sure the bike is turned off. Because if you hit that thumb throttle or you hit the pedal, that motor's going to turn on. And the last thing you want is that thing taking off on you, or your hands in the chain or whatever. You just don't want any of that. So anytime you're doing any maintenance or loading and unloading, make sure the bike is off. That's a big piece there.
Gotcha. Okay. How do they travel on bike racks? I have a Jeep, for example, a Wrangler. I want to throw a bike rack on the back and go somewhere remote, and then get even more remote with my bike. How do they travel okay like that?
Yeah, they really do. I just throw the bike over the tailgate of my truck.
Yep.
And that works good for me. But not all people want to do that. It can be a pain in the ass if you're hunting or whatever. So a lot of people will buy a hitch-mounted bike rack that plugs into your hitch receiver, like on your Jeep or a truck or an SUV. And we actually sell one on our website. It's made by One Up, and it's a fully machined metal bike carrier that plugs into your rear rack. And they actually ride really well. That specific rack that we sell, or bike carrier, it's designed to hold the weight. It's designed to hold the wider tires. Integrates flawlessly with all of our bikes. So we highly recommend the One Up. But they're really nice. They ride really well, and with it, those bike carriers, you're not having to lift them very high. You can kind of set one tire up on, one of the tire slots and then, come pick the other side up and set it in and clamp it down that way. So that's a really nice thing to have, especially if you're doing a lot of loading and unloading and, driving to your hunting spots and then going from there.
Gotcha. Okay. How do you decide as a consumer which one to buy? I mean, there's a lot of cool options here, and obviously price matters somewhat. You only have so much money to spend, but how would you pick which one if you had unlimited money?
Yeah. I mean, if budget's not a concern and you got more money than God and you're willing to pay the premium price, then by all means, go with the bike that's gonna have the more bells and whistles, because again, you're not compromising.
Okay.
Again, I try to push the guys in the mountains, guys and gals who are using them in, the mountains, or like, for example, Pennsylvania, where you got these really steep hills, and these logging roads. I try to push them more towards the Predator and the Apex model, for example, because they have the better suspension, they have the better brakes, they have the wider gear ratio, so they're not compromising on the terrain that they're going on.
Okay.
They have all the power they need, but if you're, again, I kind of keep going back to flatland country, that obviously the Apex and the Predator will work in that terrain, but you don't need it. You just don't need all that torque and power. So why spend the extra money if you don't have to? Now, again, like what I alluded to earlier, I've hunted with the Ranger and these Ranger Rover, the hub motorbikes in elk country here in the mountains, Colorado.
Okay. Right.
It's just you're compromising a little bit. Like, I do have to pedal up some hills if I don't, I do have to work a little bit harder. They don't have the climbing capabilities. So that's just the main thing, and feel free to give us a call. I mean, call any one of us, talk to the sales guys, shoot us an email. We always are asking the right questions, hey, how much, I mean, some people hate to admit, or, it's kind of awkward sometimes asking, but how much do you weigh? I don't want to put you in a 750 hub drive bike if you're close to 300 pounds. I want to get you in that mid-drive 1,000 watt, because again, you're not going to have to compromise. You're going to have all the power you need, and you can always, tone it down. Vice versa, you got your wife who's 5'4" and weighs 100 pounds soaking wet. I don't want to put her in the 1,000 watt. That's too much power for her.
Yeah.
The terrain you're riding, where you're going to be using it. There's also certain regulations that are really starting to take shape as far as motor size requirements. If you're hunting some areas of public land, certain states allow up to a 750 watt e-bike, and that's classified as a normal bike, considered non-motorized. But if you jump up to the 1,000 watt, now you're in the same category as an ATV or a side-by-side, so it is considered motorized. So you might not be able to use it in certain areas. So there's legal considerations, there's weight, there's what you're using it for, the terrain, your budget, all these different factors. But again, talk to any one of us, give us a call, talk to our dealers. We have a number of dealers across the country that will ask the right questions and figure out what's going to be the best bike for you.
Gotcha. So just to touch on the regulations, this was one of my questions I had for you. But so you always see those signs, no motorized vehicles allowed. And you get to thinking, well, the electric bike is motorized, but is it? Where does the state government, where does the federal government consider these things motorized and not motorized? Is there a line that you're seeing, or a definitive difference in some of your bikes that are considered motorized versus non-motorized? You mentioned the 750 to the 1,000. What's that line, and is each state different?
Yeah, so this is the tough thing about electric bikes in current day, is that laws and regulations are changing so rapidly, and with more e-bikes hitting the pavement and more e-bikes in consumers' hands, there's the legislation is changing, and unfortunately there's so many different states and areas and places that they're all different. There's no national policy at present day that says this e-bike is considered motorized and you can use it anywhere off trail. For example, like U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management they consider at current day any e-bike, whether it's 750, 1,000 watt, 250 watt, 100 watt, they consider that as a motorized vehicle. So they regulate it the same as a Jeep or a side-by-side or a dirt bike, four-wheeler.
Which means,
unfortunately,
to me, is silly. I mean,
it's silly.
It's
very
completely,
silly.
they're different altogether. They're more like a bicycle than anything else. The drive is the difference.
Yeah, and there's no more impact. There's no noise. And honestly, with the fat tires, you're spreading more of the weight distribution, so you're not rutting up areas. You're not spinning your tires and ripping up ground. It is very silly, and I think you will see changes to that. And I think as more e-bikes hit the market and more of these conflicts maybe start happening, you're going to see legislation change and policy change. But but then there are certain states that allow, depending on how the land is managed, like I know in Maryland, you can use up to a 750 watt e-bike and go in the areas that are, non-motorized or, where four-wheelers and stuff aren't allowed. There's other states that are coming on board, like Florida, I think Arkansas, Pennsylvania on the state lands, you can use up to 750 watt e-bikes. Now, the game lands in Pennsylvania are different than the state properties and the state forests. So it really just depends on, what area you're hunting or what area you're looking to use it in. Like bike trails here in our backyard in Vail, Colorado, there's bike paths that, go up over the pass. They, that area, that town voted that you can have up to a 750 watt e-bike and be considered non-motorized, just as a normal bike. So unfortunately, I can't sit here and say that, this e-bike is legal here in all these places, because it is so gray and there's so many different regulations and policies depending on how the land is managed, that it's really best to check with your local game commission, talk to the law enforcement in the area where these bikes are legal, and that's gonna give you the most clarity on where you can and cannot use them.
Well, here's my overview on that, is that when you have a product that they are now creating specialized regulations for, then you're on to something. Like, this is a game changer now. And I think that's fascinating that, they actually have to create new regulations simply for your product. That's neat. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And there's a lot of groups out there that are kind of lobbying for electric bikes. Like, I recommend everyone who's interested or owns an e-bike, check out peopleforbikes.org. Okay. And, there they have a ton of information on your state that you can look up and see what regulations, are around on electric bikes in your state or in your area. So that's a really good resource. They talk about laws and, what they're doing to kind of develop different policies and work with lawmakers and, stuff like that. So I recommend people checking that out. There's been a number of studies done on impacts of electric bikes, when operating or being used in the same realm of hikers and normal mountain bikers. And the studies all come back. There's no more impact of a normal bike, or there's no more disturbance to the general consumer than with a normal bike. So as these studies come to light, there's more people out there using them. There's more information around these things. You're going to see the laws change. And we've even seen that over the last year or so. We now have to classify and label each bike. So there's essentially 3 different classifications on e-bikes. There's class 1, class 2, class 3. Class 1 is, and there's different laws are, being developed around like, class 1 bikes are allowed here, but class 2 and 3 are not, or class 2 and 1 are, but, class 3 isn't. So there's different classifications there. Class 1 is 750 watts or less without a thumb throttle.
Okay.
So essentially stock, any of our bikes are not class 1. However, that throttle can be easily removed. It's just a simple wire plug, and we can make that bike a class 1. So if somebody's like, well, I want a class 1 bike, that's not a problem. We can remove that throttle, make it a class 1. Now, class 2 is up to 750 watts, but can have a throttle. So it's not just pedal assist. Class 3 is anything over 750 watts. Doesn't matter if it has a throttle or not. So like our 1,000 watt, the Apex, the Canyon, those bikes would be a Class 3.
Gotcha. All right. So QuietKat is aware of a lot of these regulations and can adjust the bike in some scenarios to actually meet the regulations so that you don't have to buy a bike and not being able to ride it, basically.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That's
we do
cool.
that all the time.
That's very cool.
Yep.
So what are hunters saying about this? What's the hunting community feedback for your bikes? And I know, the QuietKat can be built for the hunter, and it certainly has been in a lot of aspects, but I'm sure there are a lot of other people using them that are not hunters. But what's the hunting community saying about this, the ones that have tried them out so far?
Oh, it's overwhelmingly positive. I mean, we get emails every day. I get people sending me pics, texting me pics that are either my dealers or, direct customers that have purchased from us, hey man, I shot this buck. I went in and, on my bike, I put the bike right below my stand. And, it's just like, you get really, really cool stories and success, pics that are sent to you on a daily basis almost. And for a lot of people, not just, hunters are a big part of that, but just, anybody in general, this allows them to still be out there and hunt and access their stand, and have a more enjoyable hunt than riding a noisy four-wheeler. For the guy that, can't ride a normal mountain bike, whether he's a hunter or not, because maybe he had a knee injury or maybe he's 70 years old and just doesn't have the cardio capacity that he did when he was 25, this still allows him to be out there and ride a bike and enjoy nature and do those things. So it's really cool. The feedback's been great. We're constantly kind of tweaking stuff. We're always open to our customer feedback, or listening to our dealers, what they're hearing, and we make adjustments. So overwhelmingly positive. And again, it comes back to that efficiency thing. We're all strapped for time. For example, and some of the guys, you got a 400-acre farm. Well, you might have 15 trail cameras on that farm. Well, what took you, 2 hours to walk, or let's say you're driving on a four-wheeler, you're making a bunch of noise. Now you can do it completely silent, and within, 20, 30 minutes, check all those trail cameras and be out of there, which is really cool. So I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can use it. It improves a lot of things in a lot of different ways, but from the hunting side, it's been really good.
Gotcha. Very cool. So if you wanted to buy these things, there are two things that kind of come up. One, the price point for those that don't have an unlimited budget, which I think are the majority of people. It looks like you offer financing, and what's the warranty like? I mean, once you buy these things, and it's a big ticket item. How comfortable am I when I buy these things if something doesn't work quite right? What's the warranty and the financing about?
Yeah. So we do offer financing through our website. So you're able to go on there, select the bike you want with the accessories, add it to the cart, and you can do a financing option. So obviously that depends on your credit score. You can put a certain amount down if you want to pay $1,000 down and then pay the rest off in payments from there. And there's different, term amounts there as well. But again, it all comes back to your credit score and what you're buying. So that's definitely an option as well. There's some of our bigger dealers too. For example, like Bass Pro Shops, you can, go in there and buy a bike and put it on the club card. And that's essentially a way to finance it as well through them. So there's different options there, but it really opens up a lot of doors that, I don't have the money now, but I can make a payment plan. So that's pretty cool. And then as far as the warranty, we offer a 1-year warranty on all the components, batteries, motors, and a lifetime warranty on the frame itself. So
okay.
If anything were to happen, to the frame, I mean, we would replace it, no questions asked. Again, what it really boils down to with the warranty side is that, we're not like some of the other bike companies there that are trying to compete necessarily on a price point. So again, it goes back to the battery. The battery is a huge part of the bike, and it's a big cost factor into the ultimate price tag of the bike itself. So, we use those Panasonic cells as compared to some other companies using, off-brand cells, because we don't want to be dealing with warranty issues. We don't want to be dealing with customers, mad that they're not getting the mileage that we said they would. So it starts with us building the bike right with, a good high quality aluminum frame that's not going to rust, good components that are going to handle, diverse environments, a good battery that's going to hold up in hot and cold, temperatures, and it's going to last for many, many years, for thousands of miles, and in a very solid motor that's designed and built to handle a lot of weight and a lot of torque. So it all starts with the design, right? So we spend the extra money. We build these bikes with the good components and the good infrastructure, so we have less, very, 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 very small amounts of warranty issues. However, with anything, whether it's any product, could be a game call, could be a tree stand, could be an e-bike, could be a normal bike, anything that has moving parts and or an electrical system, there's obviously errors, right? There's stuff that can happen. So with that in mind, we have a great customer service team. You give us a call to our customer service line. They'll take care of you. They'll find out what's going on. A lot of times, if you're having an issue, it can be fixed over the phone. Could be, a wire got unplugged, or, something happened where it's just a simple wire connection, and we can talk you through that. That's pretty simple. If a battery for some reason is not working properly or whatever, give us a call. We'll send you a new battery. No questions asked. Having issues with, gearing or whatever, we'll talk you through that. We'll send you to a local bike shop. If your bike does something major and it does fall under warranty, again, you talk to us. We'll find out where you're at. We will arrange for you to take that bike to a local service shop. A lot of times it is a bike shop, but it can be, anywhere that can turn a wrench. Can be an ATV dealership, could be wherever. But a lot of times it's a bike shop. You drop the bike off there. We'll send any parts or components that are needed if necessary. They get the bike running, back up and going for you. We'll give you a call, say, hey, your bike's ready. You go pick it up and you're ready to roll. So we have a really good customer service team. That's one thing we really pride ourselves on is being on the ball with that and taking care of the customer and doing the right thing. So we stand behind our bikes.
Gotcha. All right. So, Adam, here's one of my biggest questions of the day. As hunters, we have gear. We have a lot of gear we like to carry in. We have guns. We have bows. We have backpacks.
Yep.
Tree stands. And we need to sometimes get these things out to the locations where we're going. Obviously, you prep for the hunt. Maybe you've already put up a tree stand. Maybe you don't need to carry your climber in or whatever.
Yep.
But let's say for that you've done your homework, you've got a place where you've already kind of put your stand already. Maybe you had to walk it in, or you drove it, or walked, or whatever. Maybe you rode a four-wheeler in, but from then on you want to use your bike. How do you get your backpack, your gun, your bow in with you? And are there accessories that we need to do that? And are these bikes capable in some capacity of putting a deer that you just shot on some kind of device and hauling it out of there? How do you do all that?
Yeah, no, all good questions. Yeah, so that brings us to our accessory line, and we have a number of accessories, from fenders, front and rear fenders to keep the mud and the water from flying up on you. We've got a rear pannier rack that mounts to the frame of the bike and allows you to strap gear down to that. You can throw gear on there. We have pannier bags. They're like a rear saddlebag system that clamps to the rear rack. And then you can put smaller accessories in there, keep a toolkit in there. With the pannier bags, the saddlebags, they're a rubberized dry bag material, so they're fully waterproof, which is cool. And they're an open top design. So I actually carry that. So how I carry my bow into the stand or wherever I'm going, if I'm Western hunting, elk hunting, I'll usually just have my heavier frame pack on, and I'll attach it to my backpack. That works really well. But like when I'm whitetail hunting and I've got my day pack and, maybe a tree stand on my back, I'll actually put my bow in the pannier bags. So I'll set the bow in there, and then I'll cinch the straps tight and clamp everything down, and that thing's not going anywhere. It's protected. It's up off the ground, and works really well. It's kind of a double purpose system. There's other bike companies that make a specific bow holder, but it mounts to the rear, part of the frame. It sits down really low. It's not protected. It's metal. It's heavy. It adds weight. And what we found is just not really necessary. So I either recommend putting it in the pannier bags, strapping it to your backpack, or you can, we don't currently sell any, but you can pick up some, like Colpin, for example, makes these ATV gun and bow racks that you can either mount to the handlebars and carry your bow that way, or you can actually mount into the pannier rack, the rear rack as well, and you can carry your bow that way. So that works really well in that design. So yeah, number of accessories, and we offer a front bag. You can put smaller tools and stuff in there. We offer 2 different bike light options. We offer 1,000 lumen white light, which is really nice. I mean, it's super bright. If you're doing a lot of high speed riding at night, it's definitely nice to have that 1,000 lumen light on the front. But we also offer what's called our Hunter 800 currently. We're changing the name for 2019 and adding some different stuff to it. But it's essentially a red and white option. So you got 500 lumens white light. So when you're riding down a road or a trail or whatever, you can ride with the brighter light. When you get a little closer to your stand or where you're going, you can flip over to the red. And deer and other animals can't see that UV spectrum as well in that light form. So you can toggle over to the red and go across the field, and you're a little bit more covert. So those are some of the different options. Then we, our big one too, we have a cargo trailer. So
I was just looking at that. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, so that attaches to the rear axle currently, and works with any of our bikes. So you can haul extra gear there. The whole concept behind the single tire is, that's more maneuverable. It's, you can fit it through tighter areas, single tracks, and it's only as wide as the bike itself. So that's pretty cool. You can throw coolers on there. Some people do haul deer or quartered meat on the trailer as well. I recommend going up to about 80 to 100 pounds max on the trailer, just because with a single tire design, you're having to balance the weight of whatever's in the trailer left to right.
Right.
So you want to be conscious of that. Now we are working on a 2-wheel design for a trailer that should come out in 2019. That's going to allow you to haul heavier. You want to throw a 200-pound buck on there, then that's no issue at all. Some people do utilize their existing game carts or trailers that they have, and they'll attach them to the rear rack. The pannier rack that goes over the rear tire, they'll attach them that way with a U-bolt or a strap or whatever. So there's lots of different options there.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good, man. I think we've covered an awful lot in a very short amount of time, and I appreciate you taking the time to go through all the bells and whistles and all that. I mean, after listening to you talk about these things, I thought these were neat to begin with, but now I'm excited. Like I think these are the types of things that I think can really change your day and make you way more efficient when you're trying to get out, when you only have a certain number of hours to get there. And I think this is a game changer, and I'm excited to eventually try one of these out and actually use them in my terrain and go to get on my trail system and instead of alerting the deer that I'm coming on my 4-wheeler, taking this quiet device and going a mile away and getting into a more remote stand where I know the deer are hanging out for the day. I think this is a great device.
Oh yeah. It's definitely cool, and like I said, it all comes down to efficiency. Or like your elk hunting or western hunting, you don't want to have to walk 3 miles in, just to get to where where the hunting is starting to get good, and then have to walk 2 miles in from there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can save your legs. It's not about being lazy. It's not about being, this guy that doesn't want to work hard. It's about, being more efficient and getting in further, quicker. with more stealth. You're quiet. It's portable. It's all the above. So it's very exciting stuff. And if you are going to be at ATA, Jay, I recommend if you do, come stop by our booth, because what's unique about this year, we will have a test area right next to our booth that anybody's going to be able to come over and ride the bikes around this area and really get the different feel of the full suspension Ridge Runner versus the folding bike versus the Canyon versus the Apex, so you're going to be able to jump on and test everything right there at our booth.
Perfect. We will be there for sure. So
sounds good.
So Adam, now that we've answered a bunch of questions, maybe created a whole bunch more, or if somebody is ready to pull the trigger on one of these things, where do people go to buy these electric bikes, your QuietKat electric bikes? And if they have more questions, where do they reach out? How do they contact you? Where's your social media, et cetera?
Yeah, so if you're looking for general information, and obviously we went through a lot of stuff on the accessories and the different models here on the podcast, but start with our website. Go to QuietKat.com, and that's QuietKat.com. From there, you can shop all of our different bikes, all of our different accessories. You can find a lot of information. You can watch videos, tons of photos on there. And that's going to list out all the specs of the different models and kind of give you a good idea. But again, these are technical bikes. People are using these in all different parts of the country. Everyone has different needs. Everyone has different price points that they're looking to hit. So, don't hesitate to reach out and give us a call. Our phone number is 970-328-2399. And, you can talk to any one of our sales guys here. If you need customer support, technical assistance, you can call that same number as well. But start there, and we can certainly help you with your decision-making process and selecting the bike that is best for you. Now, the best way to get a feel of these bikes is to actually ride them. So in order to do that, you can go to our website as well and look up our dealers. So we have a dealer locator on our website. You can type in your zip code and it'll pull up the closest dealer to your area. Or you can call us and say, hey, where's the nearest dealer to me? And we'll help you find that archery shop or sporting goods store to have you get on a bike and try it for yourself. Because that's really where people are blown away. That's really where you get the good feel of the bike is and what it can do. Because a lot of people, think, oh, it's just a bike. You can't go up a steep hill. You can't carry a lot of weight. Like, they get on this thing and they're like, holy cow, this thing takes off quick and it's got tons of power. So if you can go to a dealer, ride one, it's gonna change your life for sure. And it'll give you a good idea what you're getting into. And social media, we have Facebook, Instagram. I think our Instagram handle's QuietKat e-bike. We're always posting stuff on there. We're showing a lot of consumer photos, people out in the field using these things, success photos, so that's cool too. So definitely check out the social media as well.
Awesome, man. Adam, this has been an honor and a pleasure, and thanks for coming on the show to break this all down. I know there are a lot of hunters I think are kind of sitting on the sidelines because they're interested, but they want more information. They want to hear from the company. They want to know all of the little things that they could potentially have and need some way to sort it out. And I think what we just did, this conversation we just had, will break that down for them. So I appreciate you coming on. For sure. And Jay, can I leave you with a little story from this past fall? Absolutely, man. Take a few minutes. So for myself, I'm an avid elk hunter, and I work full time for QuietKat, and elk hunting requires a different. Like I said, mentioned earlier, you gotta go in a couple miles or more to be in the ballpark, and then from there you might have to go another mile or two to kind of get in the zone, right, where you're actually in good elk hunting. And with working a full-time job during the week, getting out and hunting after work, leaving after 5, it's difficult. It's tough to get in a quality hunt in a couple hour time frame. If you had to walk, if you had to, take a normal vehicle in on some of these rough trails or 2-track roads. So,
this past fall, opening week elk season, I was hunting in an area, and I knew there was some elk in this area, but it was treacherous terrain, and there's no way that I was going to be able to get to them in time if I wasn't using a bike. So one of the nights I got out of work after 5. I actually picked up my girlfriend at 5:30. It's getting dark at like 7:30 at this time, so you only have a couple hours to work with. So I pick her up. We drive up to this area, unload the bikes, and basically go 2 miles in on the bikes. In this time frame, and I've got about an hour left to play my cards. And so we take the bikes in, dump them, lean them over, mark them on the GPS so you you don't lose them, and then it allowed me to move in on these elk. Long story short, I wasn't able to get a shot off. It was at that kind of time period where the thermals are changing and the wind's swirling. I'll blame it on the wind, but long story short, was not successful in that regard. But if I wouldn't have had that bike, I would have never been able to get to those elk in time. So that's what I try to reiterate to people. It opens up a lot of options. It opens up a lot of opportunities to be able to get out there when you might only have a couple hours, or you might only have 30 minutes to go check your trail cameras on your farm. We're all busy. We all lead, stressful, jam-packed schedule lives, and these bikes really add to that and allow you to go farther, get in undetected. It's portable. It's quiet. That's just one of the many stories that I have. I hear those every day from customers. Definitely check us out. And it's been a pleasure talking with you, Jay.
15 years ago, I never would have expected that the bicycle would have influenced the hunting industry and the hunters themselves about how to efficiently and quietly get to and from your stand or your favorite hunting spots. I can see riding a bicycle to a spot, but the amount of gear that we carry and the amount of energy that we would expel riding bicycles and the amount of sweat that would probably drain from our bodies as we got there to increase our stench and alert the deer that we were there just seems to be one of the ways in which that we probably want to avoid until the latest invention, the electric hunting mountain bike, came along with the likes of QuietKat to help us efficiently and quietly and without expelling a lot of extra energy to get us in and out of our favorite hunting spots far away in a short amount of time, efficiently. So thank you to Adam Parr for joining us on the Big Buck Registry Deer Hunting Podcast. And don't forget that because of this interview that we did with Adam, QuietKat has generously offered all of the listeners of the Big Buck Registry a 15% discount if you go and order off their website and you use the checkout code, the special code, BigBuck15, BigBuck15 at checkout. You'll get 15% off your order. So check that out. Now, Dusty, do we have a Chubby Tines tip of the week?
Yeah, Jay, absolutely. And I'm digging kind of deep into my magic bag on what I do late season. And
the Chubby Tines tip of the week is sponsored by Morse's Sporting Goods. Firearms, used firearms, bows, used bows, located at 85 Kentucky Falls Road in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. Give Jim a call at 603-464-3444, morsessportinggoods.com. Your dollars go further in New Hampshire. There's no sales tax. Morse's Sporting Goods.
Obviously the snow is starting to fly in most areas. And down south, you're not going to see that snow, but just something for the snow folks that are hunters. Maybe you've stayed out of your woods all year and you haven't went in and seen what's going on. That snow is a great educator. It allows you to see where deer movement is without actually getting deep into the movement areas.
Right.
I like to go in with a good pair of optics and kind of get into the woods and work the outskirts, maybe get a couple 100 yards into the woods and kind of work my way around a little bit and see where different trails are. And this snow is going to educate you where that major corridor, highway, whatever you want to call it, it's going to allow you to be able to get a visual on that without leaving a huge scent trail. A good pair of rubber boots or a good pair of snow boots that are, try to be scent free as possible. And you make that venture in there and check out where they're traveling and you might be able to see a bedding area with a good pair of optics, like up on a ridge or on a hillside or, just be gentle with it. Be careful. You can move around as long as the snow's not too frozen and crusty. You can get in there and move around and be pretty much silent in the snow, fresh snow especially. But use it as your advantage and get in there and try to see what's going on. And maybe you have to make a few adjustments over to a different hillside where you see the activity of the deer. If the deer are eating acorns in the woods right now, they're going to absolutely be tore up like a hog's been in there, rolling around and snorting and rooting. Just take time and figure out where the deer movement is and how do you need to adjust for late season.
That's a great tip. Dusty, where can we find you when you're not hanging out here in the studios with me?
Shoot me an email, dusty@bigbuckregistry.com. You can look me up on Instagram and Twitter @ChasingAntler, Facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors. Jay, where can the people reach out to you when you're not on the mic?
Likewise, you can shoot me an email, jay@bigbuckregistry.com, and you can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Twitter, which is twitter.com/bigbuckregistry. We're also on Instagram, instagram.com/bigbuckregistry, and YouTube, which is youtube.com/bigbuckregistry. On YouTube, you can listen to all of our podcasts in their entirety. As far as videos are concerned, it's a boring video, but the audio content is there, so you can actually listen to our podcast. You can also listen to all of our live shows that we've done on Thursday nights when we do them, and we've gone back and re-interviewed a lot of our previous guests we had on the show just to put a face to a voice, let's put it that way. You can always listen to our show on other places as well, not just YouTube. We're found on Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and as an Amazon Alexa skill. Go to Alexa and say, Alexa, enable Big Buck Registry. And if you would like to submit a buck to our page for consideration and be featured on our page in front of 250,000 diehard deer hunting fans, all you have to do is go to bigbuckregistry.com/mybuck, and all of the instructions will be right there. I think that's pretty much everywhere we're at. I think that's a wrap, Dusty.
That's a whole lot of big buck, Jay.
Sure is. I'm Jay Scott.
I'm Dusty Phillips.
And this is the Big Buck Registry's Deer Hunting Podcast. We'll see you next week.